Bless the Lord, O my soul, blessed art thou, Lord.
When I shared my interview clips with Father Winston previously, some of you commented that the things he shared probably only happen in the Philippines. And one of the things Father Winston often talked about during the interviews was about the people in the Philippines often go to the witch doctors for healing, to help them out with their problems. And unfortunately, it's not only unique to the Philippines, people going to witch doctors. When I talked to Father Iannuzzi, he also often talked about how the Italians would go to them, and then the Mexicans, Brazilians, Africans. Just like this video I'm going to share with you now. And I blur it on purpose, in case some of you can't really watch this kind of thing. The woman put in his mouth what appears to be an egg, but what comes out after that, I'm not sure really what that is. And the man apparently had a mysterious illness, so he went to the witch doctor for help. As you know, I love listening to Father Winston, the exorcist from the Philippines. And through him, I've learned a lot about what's going on in the Philippines. And judging by the comments, I know there are a lot of Catholics from the Philippines here. Anyway, I started with that because for this video, there are 3 clips of Father Winston from his public lecture that I want to share with you. And if you love listening to stories shared by the exorcists, I think you're going to love this one. So let's start with the first one, the seminarian who wanted to have powers from the demons. Listen to this.
What makes people use it? The desire for power, the desire to be special. The spirit of divination comes in to a person who is very curious in having powers. I had a case of a seminarian who wanted to have powers. So he went to the internet, how to develop psychic powers. And there were instructions on the internet how to do it. So what he did was copy it, and then at 12 midnight, went in front of the mirror, read the instructions, and touched his forehead several times while reading the instructions and what to say. Then he waited. Nothing happened. The following night, he heard something from outside his window, some whispering. So he did not mind it. The following night, the voices became nearer. And he got irritated. He thought that seminarians were whispering. But there was no one. On the 3rd night, he heard again talking, this time just outside his window. So he became irritated. On the 5th night, the whisperings were by his bedside. There's nothing there. On the 6th night, the whisperings were already by his ear. On the 7th night was already the word. He could hear talking clearly. Then he started to see spirits inside the seminary. And he became afraid. So when he told me the story, I wanted to get a bat. Why did you do it? And his answer was, I wanted to have powers. Ritual. The occult forces in divination is always diabolical, whether you know it or not. And the Catholic Church tells us clearly that all forms of divination are to be rejected, including the phenomena of clairvoyance or occult third eye, because there is a desire to have power. And perhaps some of you, including the sisters, sorry to say, and even some priests would want to have the power to see, because they thought that if they have this clairvoyance, they can feel more closer to God and that they can pray better. The desire to see, or perhaps the desire to heal, thinking that they would be better Christians if they are able to help people by healing. But this contradicts the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone.
And the following story shared by Father Winston is from one of his cases, and it's a very interesting one. Listen to this.
Of an exorcism of a young woman who thought that the vision that she sees is from God. She has had the power at a very young age. And her vision was she saw what seemed to be of a man crucified, pero she does not see the face or the body, only the feet. So she thought that that is the feet of Jesus Christ. So whenever she would pray, she would envision seeing that feet. And she had a devotion to that vision. And she would have visions of things that would happen, always tragic things, and they would occur. So she had the power to foretell what would happen, but she would not be able to control it. She thought that she had the gift of visions. One day, she dreamt of her family all dying in an accident. And that made her very afraid because she could not do anything. She approached the office of exorcism of the archdiocese and she was oriented, but she could not accept the fact that her visions did not come from God. So she kept on the visions, thinking that something good would happen. But every time she would dream of her whole family all dying at the same time. So she was afraid and eventually surrendered that power. And this is that moment where she asked that her third eye be closed. Remember, for a long time she thought that it came from God, and she held on to it. The exorcist was putting holy oil on her forehead. She would touch her tummy, her belly, because she would feel pain. And at a certain moment, she could no longer endure it. She would fall to the ground and resist being anointed with oil. And her story was that as I was anointing her, her whole body started to be very, very hot, beginning from her stomach until her head, until she could no longer contain it. And she would stop my hand because according to her, she sees my hands as flaming with fire. from the vision that she first had, she would follow it. She would develop it. She would not want to renounce it because she thought that it makes her special. But it is not from God. Everything that she saw made her feel special. Imagine you can predict the future. But the only time that she realized this must not be from God was when she realized it was telling her, your family is going to die. And that freaked her out because she cannot do anything. And that is the time she called on God, Lord, have mercy on my family. I am now willing to surrender everything to you. Because a person with an occult third eye becomes BFF, best friends forever, if you use it all the time. It gets bonded to you.
And the next and last clip I want to share here with you will be this about a dentist who used the power of demons to help her with her practice.
How do you close the third eye? First and foremost, by a definitive renouncement of the spirit of divination and the powers given by those demons. Definitive. In other words, it is not simply a person if you have the power already. We met, for example, a case of a dentist who uses this power for her practice. And she said that this power helps her help a lot of people. So in the pretext of helping a lot of people, what does she do? A patient comes into the clinic. She uses that power by knowing whether the person has diabetes or heart disease to help the person so that she will not do anything that might harm the person. Is that bad? Her intention was good. However, the power is not from God. So one day she decided, when she learned about this thing, something happened to her in her family. She approached the office of the Archdiocese of Manila Office of Exorcism. She wanted now to close her occult third eye. However, little did we know that her intention was she did not want the demon controlling the ability, but she still wants the power. So when she made her renouncement of the occult power of divination and the spirit, even though she was saying the words in her heart, she only wants the demon out, but the power remains. So one day, she thought everything was okay. She made the rite of closing the occult third eye, and she thought everything was okay. Then one day, her dental chair elevated. And you know how heavy that is. And that dental chair was thrown at her. She had a video of it. And her assistants saw it. And they were so afraid. What happened? The spirit retaliated. Because while doing the exorcism on her, the spirit felt the power of the prayer and the pain. But it cannot leave because the woman wanted the power. The power and the one who gave the power are one and the same. You renounce the demon, you renounce the power. It cannot be half-half. That is why I said definitive renouncement of the spirit of divination and the powers given by those demons. If the person has become a medium, a demon that comes in and out will be commonly encountered and the battle will be long. Why? Because the medium is so used to entering and going of spirits. And so the spirit will just play. So you do an exorcism, the spirit will go out, but then after the exorcism, the spirit will come back because the person is a medium. Therefore, it is required total, unconditional renouncement of the spirit of divination and its powers is necessary, without which no liberation can be achieved. In expelling the spirit of divination in a person deeply ingrained in the practice of the occult, possession will commonly occur. If the person has not devotedly prepared himself or herself spiritually. So this is the reason, don't be angry with us or the exorcist or the priest when you ask that you be prayed over immediately. Because if you are deep into the occult and you ask to be prayed over and you are not spiritually prepared, you may get possessed. And you don't want that. This happened to us, Father Joseph and I. It was the conference on the ministry of healing. There were many participants, about 400. And we talked about this and false charisms. And many people were reacting. They were probably angry with what we were saying. Only to find out half of the participants were witch doctors. Some of them were extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, involved in the ministry of healing of the Archdiocese. In other words, people go to the albularyo thinking that it is from God because he is a member of the parish healing ministry. Anyway, why am I telling you this? Father Joseph and I do not want to do ambush prayovers because we know of things, reactions. And there was this lady while we were going down. Monsignor Krickenbeck was there too. And then Father Joseph was talking with someone. And then there is this lady, little lady, old lady, came and got Father Joseph's hands. And Father Joseph was, resisting. No. And this lady placed his hands on her head. And once Father Joseph did this, of course, Father Joseph wanted to help the woman, prayed over her, and the woman started to scream and shake. She became possessed right there and then. We don't want that because the woman was not prepared. You have to prepare, especially if you're deep into the occult. You cannot just be prayed over just like that because that is also what albularios do. You don't need to repent. You don't need to go to confession. Just come and you get healed. No, that's not how we do it. We need to be prepared spiritually. Otherwise, the possibility of demonic retaliation and possession can occur.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.